right, it's 1 o'clock, and I wanted to welcome everybody to this session. And my name is Robin O'Leary, and today we've got Gregory Mauldin and Ray Miller, and both of them are on mic, so you should be able to hear them. I just want to real quick thank some of our sponsors: Panda Consulting, Dewberry, TCC, Esri, and Florida Resource and Environmental Analysis Conference. So we thank all those people that have helped make this happen. So I'm going to turn it over right now to Mr. Mauldin.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I want to wish everybody a glorious GIS day. It's beautiful here in Tallahassee for it. And so this talk here is being co-presented by myself and Ray Miller with Dewberry. And we're going to be talking about keeping our base map current. And so we have, when I say we, that's Tallahassee-Leon County GIS has been around for, well, let's see, since 1990. We have had a base map update process since 1996. And so we're going to go through, the basic design of that and talk about some of the different products and how they've changed throughout the years. And so we're going to break this up. So I'm going to take the project summary, and then Ray's going to do mostly the land-based deliverables, and then I will be talking about how we do all the QA QC. And then we have a special project showcase here for a quality level 0 Lidar survey that Dewberry and us and 3DEP cooperated on. Got a grant from the USGS to help us with the funding on that. And then he and I are both going to talk about some applications of the base map. So with that, we'll move on to the project summary. And it's for those of us who don't know us, we are an interlocal agency that's basically provides centralized GIS support and common base map for Leon County, the City of Tallahassee, and the Leon County's Property Appraiser's office. And we're about 703 square miles. And so what we do is for our ortho photography, we basically cover all of the Florida Division of Emergency Management 5,000 foot square tiles, and for the ortho imagery. And then with the mapping, the Lidar and the planometric update, we essentially go from our county boundary out to about 250 feet. So Tallahassee, being the capital county, has experienced growth over the years. We grew at a fairly slow rate back in the in the 90s and even the early 2000s, but lately we have really started to grow dramatically. So it's becoming more and more of a challenge to keep the base map current. And so just these next two slides here just kind of show the things, the rates of growth and how much they're increasing. So what you see here is residential permits for the past month. And now that's for the past 3 months. And that's for the past year. So we haven't captured all of these yet. And this one shows the non-residential permits for the past month, for the past year, and the past 5 years. So some of these are in our base map now. So the way we actually accomplish this is through a 3-year capital improvement project. So we get funding for a 3-year period, but it's actually authorized by the Board of County Commissioners every year. So we put it in the budget every year, and it's 1/3 of the total CIP value. And out of that money, we get airborne Lidar every 3 years. It's a new collect. And that includes also other DTM elements like brake lines. And so all that's completely new mapping every time we do it. And so within a 3-year period, we get that once. We get aerial imagery every year. And then all of the data the planometric data, etc., all come from the very first year we get it. So if we have a 3-year project, we've got year 1, we collect the LiDAR and the imagery that the mapping is going to come from. And then year 2 and 3, we also get imagery. And then the mapping is coming each year as it's funded. So, you know, we get maybe half the county one year, half the county the last year, something like that. And so the planometric data is a change detection. And then we also get one of our years of imagery, the last year of each 3-year period, we get oblique aerial imagery. And we've been working with pictometry on that for the since 2007. And this is a kind of highlight of the products that we've been collecting ever since 1996. We started out with panchromatic orthos, where we just had stereo compiled contours and spot elevations, and which was a challenge because of tree cover. And then with our 2001 3-year update, the last when in 2002 we got together with our stakeholders, we decided that the stereo mapping was not working because of the trees, and we came up with some more money and we got our first LiDAR data set. So and then 2005 through 8, we actually went through a process because of budget changes to map 1/3 of the county each year, but still got the whole thing done in 3 years. And then after that, we started to go countywide again. And 2009-12, all basically the same kind of products, except for we went to 4-band images, you know, getting us a color infrared. 2015, we had a really nice classified LiDAR data set. 2018 was where we got the whiz bang super high accuracy LiDAR data set that Dewberry provided to us, along with all the other products. And then in 2001, we just flew photography, and we're in the process of updating our planometrics. And the LiDAR is coming to us from the Hurricane Michael LiDAR collection process from USGS 3DEP. And Dewberry was the company that actually collected that. So now we're going to move over to the deliverables. I'm going to take the first slide, and then after that, we're going to turn it over to Ray, and he's going to go into some details on all the deliverables that they are providing us. And by the way, I should back up. During the period of time that we've had this from 1996, we worked with 3 mapping contractors. We started out with ADR back in the mid and late 90s, and then we were working with Merrick for about 16 years. And now we've been working with Dewberry now, finishing up our this is our 4th year with them, so we'll have a 6-year contract, and then we have to go to RFP again, and then so everybody gets to submit proposals to us, and we go on. So from the land-based deliverables, we've got mentioned topographic LiDAR, break lines, and DEMS, and from that we also produce 2-foot contours and spot elevations. And then from the break line data that is part of the DTM, we also produce water features, rivers, streams, lakes, and then so all of that is a new collect every time we do it. We also get RGB, color infrared, ortho imagery, and then the planometric change detection is done from that. So the contractor is responsible only for the changes since the last update. And then we end the contract period with oblique imagery. So Ray, take it away and tell them all about it.
All right, thank you very much, Greg. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ray Miller. I'm a project manager with Dewberry, and I'm going to talk about more detail about the deliverables here that we provide to the Tallahassee-Leon County GIS program. So first one I'm going to talk about here is the ortho imagery. The ortho imagery you see here, right, this is 4-band color infrared ortho imagery. It's 6-inch resolution. We fly this in January every year, and this is the image you're looking at here, right, is our 2018 ortho. And this was produced with very high accuracy. Our spec for horizontal accuracy root mean square error of 2.2 feet. That's actually at the green survey point that you see there in the map. The spec is 2.2 feet, but due to the very robust ground control survey that was done for this project, we achieved a horizontal accuracy of 0.28 feet, so less than 1 pixel at those checkpoint locations. So when you extrapolate that out across from those survey points, you get a predicted horizontal accuracy of just under ½ foot or 1 pixel. So very high accurate product here. And that was accomplished using, again, a very robust ground survey along with a high resolution, highly accurate DEM from the Lidar that was also flown concurrently with this imagery. And I'll unpack the details of that here in a few minutes. So next slide, Greg. So that ortho imagery that you saw there was flown with a Leica ADS-100, and this was what's known as a push broom camera, as opposed to a typical frame camera that most of you are probably all familiar with. So rather than one individual, photograph that's rectangular in shape, you get a scan, a north to south scan across the entire county, which is where the push broom terminology comes from. So you get a swath of 20,000 pixels running north and south. So you have that one whole image swath to work with, to reference to the ground, and to post process. So you have, rather than processing hundreds or thousands of images for this project, we had 45 flight line swaths across the county. So a much more efficient product that can results in a much more consistent radiometry and generally leads to a more accurate product because you're not adjusting so many individual frames to the ground. You're really just adjusting those 45 flight lines. So go to the next slide, Greg. Here's just a quick screenshot of Tallahassee International Airport. This is the RGB. It's really just a great example of the high resolution, the clarity of this imagery. Really, it's a beautiful stretch, and the contrast and the brightness there. You go to the next slide, Greg. Here we have downtown Tallahassee and Florida State University. You see Doak Campbell Stadium, home to the Seminoles there on the southwestern part of the frame there. Again, just really nice looking imagery. And then go to the next slide, Greg. You have a shot here of the color infrared perspective. This is turning on the near infrared bands of the imagery here of Lake Jackson. So obviously you see the color infrared band showing the red tree canopy there. You can see the vegetation health through the brightness of that red in the imagery. You can run what's called a normalized differential vegetation index that can actually be used to assess vegetation health. Very commonly used in ecology mapping. And then obviously you see in the lake itself, you can see the aquatic vegetation there. So again, high resolution photography, 4 bands really gives you the best value for your aerial imagery, because you can do so much with it. Go to the next slide, Greg. The other product imagery related we provide is oblique imagery. Oblique imagery is great because it provides that front, back, and side view of the ground features. Eagle View, formerly known as Pictometry, flies this for the program. From the oblique imagery, a 3-band ortho imagery is also provided, similar to the 4-band image I showed previously, except this 3-band ortho imagery is not quite as accurate as what we produce for directly for the program. With the aerial imagery and the ortho, this is more of a kind of a derivative product from the obliques that just complements the oblique imagery. Is a little bit more affordable product as well, and you see that mosaic there on the right. And the accuracy, the accuracy spec here, 4.4 feet at the 95% confidence interval, basically half the accuracy of the ortho imagery that I just discussed. Go to the next slide, Greg. From the ortho imagery and the oblique imagery to an extent, we update the planometric mapping. Planometric map is comprised primarily of impervious surfaces, buildings, roads, sidewalks, unpaved roads. Also important, we learned, just in our day-to-day project discussions, that the unpaved roads are also important for first responders, EMS, 911 to be able to direct ambulances and first responders to rural locations, people that do not live off of paved roads, and also a number of other features here: athletic courts, parking lots, and unpaved portions of parking lots, and other undeveloped features, all useful for updating your impervious surface layer, but also just general mapping and understanding the land cover of Leon County. The next slide, Greg. And just an example here, the planometric map, the change detection we do. So this is the 2018 red, green, blue, natural color ortho imagery, and overlaid here with the polygons of the impervious surface map that I think many of you on the call are familiar with. And then if you go to the next, thank you, Greg. The yellow polygons that are highlighted here are the impervious surfaces that we go in, we visually review the imagery, and we update those impervious surfaces and code them, for Greg and his team to review and as part of their QA/QC process. So that gives us, that change detection every 3 years, coded into the data, so we can quickly see what features have changed from 3 years ago. The next slide, Greg. From the aerial imagery and the planometrics, we also have a really important product, and that's the Lidar data and products. So I'm going to detail this here in a few slides, but just to give an overview of the deliverables, in 2018 we produced USGS quality level 0 grade topographic Lidar. This includes the Lidar point cloud, again tiled to the 5,000 foot by 5,000 foot FDEM statewide tile grid that Greg mentioned earlier. Those point cloud files are delivered in LAS format .1.4. We also deliver the bearer surface raster DEM at 2.5 foot resolution. You see that example of DEM right there. The Lidar intensity ortho imagery is also delivered, same tiling as the bearer surface DEM, and the Lidar intensity just gives us a good grayscale look of the ground cover at the time of Lidar collection, and that's based on the actual Lidar intensity data that's recorded in the laser pulses as the data are collected. And then we also produce break lines, hydrographic break lines for the rivers, streams, ponds, and lakes, as well as bridge shadow break lines that help us bring better definition to the DEM underneath bridges where that Lidar scanner can't get under. Next slide, Greg. And from the Lidar data and the DEM, we also interpolate contours and spot elevations. The contours are produced at a 2.5 foot or 2 foot contour interval. We code those for the contours where they run through buildings and under bridges as hidden, so you can, depending on your application, you can turn those on and off. And then the spot elevations, also very important. We publish those to a 10th of a foot, and they're all generated at high and low points, hilltops and depressions throughout the county, along at road intersections and other notable locations as requested by TLCGIS program. So really a nice data set. It's the contours are also smooth and cleaned up, so a little more aesthetically pleasing and easier for y'all to work with and visualize. As contours extracted directly from Lidar can typically become noisy and jagged as nature, just because of how highly the point sampling is of Lidar these days. The next slide. Yeah, and now I'll pass things over to Greg, who's going to talk a bit about quality management as it pertains to the products that I just detailed. Go ahead, Greg.
Okay. So when these data products come in, we actually spend quite a bit of effort and hours to do the verification of the data and making sure that it meets all of the specifications that were part of the contract, and then allows us to make sure that we publish a very complete and finished set of data products to our stakeholder users. So starting with the Lidar, we go through some checks to make sure that all the calibration, bore sight and lever arm elements are all well within specification, and There's tool sets that you can use in LP360. Esri has some as well to help us do that. Making sure that the survey control, stationary and airborne, is just right, and checking the aggregate nominal pulse spacing, and the absolute accuracy of the data through independent checkpoints. And then we look at the classification accuracy mainly by just going through and looking at profiles of areas that that we're seeing, and making sure that all of the classification processes are giving us a good product. And then we also want to make sure that the break line buffer points are properly classified, so we can leave those out of the DEM and don't bring conflicts in from that. And the checking to see if everything is in the correct elevation domain. We also compare it with our past DEMs to see that there's no significant offset year to year, even though it may well be done by a different contractor. But that's proven to show that the data's been pretty tight all throughout the years. And then with the Ortho Imagery, we just make sure we've got full coverage. We do verify the checkpoint analysis to make sure that it's meeting the requirements, and proper spatial resolution, proper spatial reference, and also making sure that it matches up well with past planometric data. And image quality checks, making sure that we don't have any null pixel values, that the TFW files don't have any typos in them, things like that. Reviewing it for color brightness and contrast, and we put a lot of effort into verifying that the ortho rectification worked even in places where it could give it trouble, and looking for things like excessive building lean in the imagery. And then once we accept it all, then we've got an in-house process that we run it through to publish 3-band 8-bit mosaic data sets of RGB and color infrared. That's done primarily, converting it to 8-bit saves us a lot of space. And then we apply a lossless compression as well, which also saves a lot of space. So we can, that's allowed us to publish this really full library of historical imagery that we've commissioned, as well as historical imagery that we've gotten from DOT and other places that we have subsequently georeferenced, just for, kind of a Tallahassee in the past sort of ability to perform analysis. And then for the contours and spot elevations, we just make sure it matches the DEM, and then we make sure it's properly layered for hidden features for the contours. And then we also do the same for the spot elevations, and we verify that the labeling's working right and all that sort of thing too. And so what we do with all this stuff is in addition to providing it to our user base on our enterprise servers, is that we also, this becomes part of all of our websites that are used by the various departments and the public to look at data and look at their property and things like that. So hydrography, this data comes from the Lidar, and is basically the polygon based elements here. So it's taken from the polygon break lines, lakes and islands over 0.2 of an acre, and then water courses, rivers, streams that are wider than 10 feet. And then if it's less than 10 feet, then it gets a single line break line that mainly just for maintaining monotonicity in the DEM and DTM, and that doesn't create any water feature there. Then the planometric data, this is probably one of the most time-consuming things because it's less automated than some of the other stuff. It's largely done visually, and we're just making sure that it's complete, that the line work matches the reference scale specifications, and that they didn't miss anything. And we also verify topology to make sure there's no gaps or overlaps in the different data elements. So before we go on to this, what we're doing with this data is that we're basically using it in a GIS context. We our specification calls for, in terms of accuracy, calls for ASPRS class 1, but within that, really what we're doing is we're using ASPRS class 1 specifications for the ortho imagery, and so it's a half-foot pixel. Therefore, and we're using it, our reference scale is 1 to 1200, so 1 inch equal 100 feet. We're not really going for engineering scale data in this base map because we don't have the money to do that, essentially. So it's high accuracy, but it's for generalized mapping. And then the Lidar accuracy is based on the USGS Lidar base specifications. So with that, we're going to now pivot and go to some more detail about the quality level 0 Lidar survey and what that got us. And it is really truly extraordinary that you can collect and produce something like this from 7,000 feet in the air and achieve between a 4 and 5 centimeter accuracy on the hard surfaces, non-vegetated surfaces. So with that, Ray, take it away.
All right, Greg, you want to go to the next slide? Yep. So so the project Greg's talking about, the quality level 0 topographic LiDAR survey we conducted in 2018 is supported by the United States Geological Survey's 3DEP, the 3D elevation program. And this program is designed to essentially collect high resolution, highly accurate elevation data for the continental US and Alaska and territories. So generally in the contiguous US, we use airborne topographic LiDAR. In Alaska, we use IFSAR, which is a sonar technology we won't get into in this discussion here. Essentially, the USGS goal is to provide updated elevation data at an 8-year cycle, all with the same consistent quality standards that are part of the 3DEP program. And this program was born out of the National Enhanced Elevation Assessment that was conducted by Dewberry over a decade ago, where we looked at basically a cost-benefit analysis and a needs assessment for all the users really in the nation, from down from the federal to the local government level and private engineering firms and so forth, to determine what everyone needs from an elevation program. And from that, we produce LiDAR data, including point clouds, bare earth dems, that provide a tremendous amount of economic benefits as opposed to going out and performing ground surveys and trying to generate topographic data from aerial imagery and so forth. So provides highly accurate, high definition imagery, and also this program allows buy-up options for local governments such as Leon County to take advantage of the broad agency announcement program, which provides cooperative funding. So you can go to the next slide, Greg. Here, this is as of 2018 when we conducted the project. This is the BAA map and the partnerships to date. So essentially, all the green polygons are the dark green polygons are all LiDAR data sets that have been acquired, and all the light green are some sort of proposed data set. We go to the next graphic, Greg, and the next animation. You see Leon County here outlined in red. And there's a hole there in the 3DEP where the previous Leon County LiDAR data set that was produced in 2015 was not compliant to the 3DEP standard. So there was a motivation there to, hey, let's fill in this gap with the 2018 LiDAR, make it 3DEP compliant, but also with with the funding we have available and with the specific needs of Leon County, let's produce a quality level 0 LiDAR data set. Go next slide, Greg. So what is quality level 0? So quality level 0 represents the highest grade LiDAR data for USGS. Most projects are typically conducted at the quality level 2 or maybe quality level 1 level, but this project represents the first county-wide quality level 0 LiDAR collection. And really the notable specs are here on the screen: the aggregate nominal point density of 8 points per square meter and a non-vegetative vertical accuracy of less than 5 centimeters. That's about 3 inches. So pretty, as Greg mentioned before, really very difficult specifications to achieve, but we'll detail that here, how we met those requirements here. So go to the next slide, Greg. So for really again, the thing that sets quality level 0 LiDAR apart is the vertical accuracy. So essentially what we're trying to do here is on non-vegetated features, impervious surfaces, roads, parking lots, grass, anything flat that does not have tree canopy, scrub, and so forth. We're trying to hit a LiDAR accuracy of just under 10 centimeters, about 4 inches at the 95% confidence level. So anywhere that's outside of where we have survey points, we have a predicted accuracy where we need to hit under that 9.8 centimeter, that 4-inch mark. And that's all based on the 5 centimeter RMSE of the actual ground survey points. Also have a relative vertical accuracy requirement of 3 centimeters for individual swath. This is basically what we would expect to see: smooth surfaces over roads, parking lots, and so forth. And then 4 centimeters within each LiDAR swath overlap to make sure that the calibration of the LiDAR swaths are aligned correctly, and we don't have any significant vertical offsets between the individual LiDAR swaths. The next slide, Greg. And the derived Dem that's produced from the LiDAR, and the Dem is really generally the end product that most folks use for water resource engineering, surface modeling, planning, and so forth. We want to have a Dem that's less than 5 centimeters in non-vegetated less than 5 centimeters vertical accuracy on non-vegetated features, and a vegetative vertical accuracy of less than half a foot at that 95 percentile. So anywhere where you go out, whether it's forest, tree canopy, scrub, you want to have a vegetative vertical accuracy of less than just under half a foot there. The next slide, Greg. Also for the break line specifications, another big change for this project was typically USGS produces LiDAR with a minimum mapping unit of 2 acres for a pond or a lake and 100 foot wide for a river or a stream. In this case, for Leon County, the goal was to produce break lines that are at least 1/4 acre for ponds and lakes and 10 foot wide for streams and rivers, where we'd actually have a polygon representing that hydro feature. And then we also produced single line drains that were monotonic to enforce flow through the Dem. The next slide, Greg. Just some specific updates to Leon County spec for USGS compliance. Again, nominal pulse density of 8 points per square meter, very important. The horizontal accuracy of just under 3.3 feet, and non-vegetated vertical accuracy, this time in feet of 0.16 feet, and vegetated vertical accuracy of less than half a foot. The next slide, Greg. So things we had to do to plan this quality level 0 survey for Leon County. The first thing, the most notable thing we had to do is add many more ground control points that supported the LiDAR calibration. So 30% more than we typically collect for a quality level 1 or 2 LiDAR survey. And also those field survey calibration points were collected with static methods. So essentially, ground survey teams sitting on that point for 45 to 60 minutes to enable a vertical accuracy of 3.2 centimeters RMSE or better. Again, those longer occupation times also required multiple independent occupations. We had to go back and check those points to make sure that they were accurate. So next slide, Greg. LiDAR systems also very important. Really when you're trying to provide such a high resolution data set at a cost effectively, you have to go with the latest and greatest. And here we use the Leica ALS 80 system. Operates a laser pulse rate of 900 kilohertz per second, a very high pulse rate to collect all those 8 points per square meter. And we flew at about 3,800 feet above ground level with a 30% overlap to make sure we got good coverage across the county. Next slide, Greg. This is our flight plan. You see the really robust flight plan here. 180 flight lines with 3 cross flights, about 400 meters apart. So really a very dense set of flight lines to fly the LiDAR in the north-south flight plan across the county. Next slide, Greg. Ground survey, like I said before, extremely important here. The ground control points you see are right, green triangles. And then we also collected accuracy checkpoints independently of the ground control points, in the sense that the ground control points are used to reference the LiDAR, and then we have the accuracy checkpoints that are held by a different team here, used for testing the non-vegetated and the vegetated vertical accuracy, so there's no confusion of those survey points, and make sure that the accuracy is tested after the LiDAR is referenced to the Earth, and we know that the accuracy is sound, and so those control points are set apart. Next slide, Greg. Bring out the survey. So generally, we want the survey, and Greg, the 2 more animations.
Okay.
Generally, so for the survey here, we collected the survey to an accuracy of 3.2 centimeters. The ellipsoid height's accurate to 3.2 centimeters, which is 3 times more accurate than our goal of 9.8 centimeters or less than 9.8 centimeters for the non-vegetated features. And that was very important. We generally want to have that ground survey to be 3 times the accuracy of our predicted vertical accuracy specification to make sure that we that ground survey is sound here. So you have an example here in the image of the survey setup, and then the checkpoint documentation report that we use to validate that the survey points there. Next slide. And we collected over 90 checkpoints, 50 non-vegetated and 40 vegetated vertical accuracy to test the data for the LiDAR. Next slide, Greg. And just the distribution of the survey points, and that's fine, Greg. And then the field photos for each one of those. Just some examples of the rugged terrain that we collected those points in, along with the impervious feature there to give us that non-vegetated look there. So, really went throughout the county to get these points and really punish the data with accuracy testing. Next slide, Greg. And the point cloud classification, the standard ASPRS version 1.4 classification here. We opted to include low, medium, and high vegetation classes as well, along with automated building rooftops that were classified to a 95% accuracy rate. So very robust classification here. Next slide. And the intensity imagery, again, that kind of grayscale gives that black and white perspective from the LiDAR intensity data that's recorded in the LiDAR. That's not a black and white aerial photograph. That is the intensity imagery generated from the LiDAR. So essentially, features that absorb light, like roads and water features, are black, and features that reflect light, like bright metal building rooftops or even grasses, reflect light, and they give that grayish or white coloration there. Next slide. And then just hydrographic break lines generated from the hydro intensity imagery, and these break lines are used for generating our elevation models. Next slide. And just an example of how those break lines are incorporated in the DEM to hydroflatten it. Here we have a river where you see that that river flowing downstream. We have monotonicity in that stream to make a nice flat river, aesthetically pleasing, and that supports floodplain mapping, water resource engineering, and so forth. Next slide. Just a nice example here of topographic LiDAR ground sampling. So you have this aerial image of the forest. You can't really see what's under there, but with the LiDAR, you can see through that tree canopy. You can see that ground there in that profile in orange. And next, you see that dam as you peel away that tree canopy, so to speak, and you can see that the bare ground features on that tree canopy. You see that definition of the stream as it flows out into that wetland. So you're just wonderful illustration of the power of topographic LiDAR data. And to wrap this section of the talk up, the Leon County Quality Level 0 LiDAR made the news. We were in Point of Beginning magazine in the September 2020 issue. And this really showed how We produce this complex and challenging data set for the TLCGIS program, and it's produced really the highest level of accuracy for a county-wide LiDAR data set in the nation, and that still stands. The next slide. So now we're going to, with the 5 minutes we have left, we're going to touch on the uses and applications, and then we can wrap up. Go ahead, Greg.
All right, so this is just kind of a slide that shows just the things that I could think of that we've used well, this is really just the elevation data for. And then the planometric data, we've done a lot of things with it. It really used it to help build a very detailed address database, to also allowed us to build and maintain a current building inventory of what the building is. Is it an office? Is it a single family residence? What have you? And then we use the planometric data for impervious surface mapping for non-ad valorem stormwater assessment. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Ray, and he's got a pretty nice library of things that they've done with LiDAR that might be informative to a lot of people. So Ray, it's back to you.
Thanks, Greg. So again, with the water, with the LiDAR DEM you see here at right, this is really valuable for water resource engineering in general. This type of DEM can support 2D hydrologic and hydraulic modeling. Most users are using XP-SWIM or ICPR. We can identify hydraulic features in the DEM, and really using the DEM, we can generate hydrography, using the flow of the water over those pixels in that raster DEM to generate a hydrographic network and ponds and lakes and so forth, and really understand the hydrography in the county. Next slide. Again, using that DEM, we can update. We can do that modeling that will update our flood maps. Here we have just an example of a before and after. The top pane shows the floodplain just around that residential homes on the peninsula here, and then with the updated LiDAR, able to update those floodplain maps and see that the flood risk for those homes is actually much greater than originally thought. And then, again, another example where LiDAR is being used very effectively to update floodplain maps. In this example here, tree canopy mapping, be able to extract those tree canopy layer right from the LiDAR data set, and all useful for determining tree volume across the county.
Using this in an urban forestry master plan.
Absolutely, yeah. Another example here of geologic mapping. So using the DEM, we can actually see faults and folds and features in the DEM that geologists can use for identifying geologic structures, looking for faults, and other geologic hazards that are useful. Next slide. We use here at Dewberry, we use LiDAR and DEMs along with aerial imagery tremendously for post-disaster debris estimation. We actually look at that DEM and then look at the post-disaster imagery to determine with high accuracy of how much debris is expected to be removed from an individual parcel, and extrapolate that across the county and give FEMA good, accurate numbers for debris removal and get funding for that. Next slide. Also using LiDAR in the infrastructure community. Here's an example in Puerto Rico where we, after Hurricane Maria, worked to identify impacts to a power plant just outside of Ponce that provides power to the greater part of southeast Puerto Rico. Just an example of that data. And then using topographic LiDAR, that we collected pre and post Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. You can see on the left, you can see the pre Maria DEM of the seafloor there, and see all that sediment that was transported post Maria there at right there. So really valuable for shoreline mapping, charting, and understanding. So to wrap up, currently we're working on processing USGS's supplemental Hurricane Michael topographic LiDAR that Leon County's a part of. Leon County's purchased the enhancements to the break lines, so we're going to be delivering that very soon. We're also doing the planometric map update using the 2021 aerial imagery, and we're spinning up to collect 2022 aerial imagery, both obliques and ortho imagery. And we're also starting a brand new product as a wetland mapping for Leon County, where we have a brand new wetland map for everybody to have access to and understand the wetlands in the county. And I think, and closing, the past 3 years with Dewberry's really had a great relationship with the program. We've been able to work with USGS to build a really nice partnership that's also helped the Florida statewide LiDAR project that some of you may have heard about. And again, really proud to produce the first quality level 0 LiDAR project in Florida. And there sure really launched a lot of new products and services that we're doing. So really appreciate everybody's patience and time today and spending this 45 minutes with us. Greg and I, our contact information is here. We're happy to answer any questions you have, offline or tomorrow. And really appreciate the opportunity to talk with everybody and present the work we've done over the past 3 years. So thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
You guys did absolutely perfect on staying on time. I appreciate that. And there were a couple of questions. Nobody posted any questions, but a couple people raised their hands. And I'm going to encourage you all to use this contact information you see on the screen and contact everybody, the presenters directly. We've got a break from 1:45 to 2 p.m. And then at 2 p.m. we have 3 more sessions. And just a reminder that there's an open discussion GIS lounge on Thursday from 3:45 to 5 o'clock. Thank you very much, Greg and Ray. We appreciate you being here. And thank you to all the people that attended, the whole 48 people, I might mention.
Wow.
And, yeah.
Thank you, Robin.
You're very welcome. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Dre.